Let's dig into WA first. I think we've both bought in WA. I'd love to get your take on it. Why WA for you? And then what was the experience like?
So I'll walk you through my thought process, right? So I was looking at Australia and there's 15,700 towns or something like that kicking around Australia. And I went, I guarantee you one of these towns is going to absolutely crush it. I don't know what it is. And so I contacted Goose. And so I said, Goose, I'm like, I want another one. I'm like, you just tell me where's the best opportunity and you find me the house and I'll buy the house. And that was it. So then I spoke to Goose and he's like, we're going to buy here. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Did you have any reservation in buying in WA in general?
So like I knew around like Perth had some pretty stale sort of numbers over about a decade. Like when I say stale, like pretty flat line. And so, but the funny thing is that the second that like someone like Goose just goes, well, here's the stats and here's the numbers. And I'm just like, looked at our current portfolio and I don't want sort of different risk in different states and stuff. So diversification is good. I said, cool, I completely trust you because has he ever failed me in the past? The answer is no. So then I just lined him with the accountant, Anthony, as well as Aaron, the mortgage broker. And then I think they just had a whole heap of emails and bought a house for me. So that was the whole thought process was I need something else I need another asset. I got cash. Let's go again. I don't really care about what the news says. I care more about the statistics, the data that sits behind it. Like we even had Goose on here talking about how during like the GFC, there was like 30% of the suburbs around or towns around Australia actually went up. And I'm just like, there's always submarkets and submarkets and submarkets. And Goose just helps me out with that one.
Yeah, but that's really interesting. So I must admit, I did have some reservation on buying in WA, but I actually did some, we'll call it personal development training. I did a few events in WA for myself. Like I was a participant doing some work on myself. And I remember this very distinctly was like when I flew over there, I expected to see like just red desert and like a country shack. I was like, there's not going to be nothing here. And I landed and got in the airport and went out. I was like, this has to be one of the most beautiful cities in Australia by far. Everything's so nice and new and clean and those beaches, like Ocean Beach. And I'm like, the bay in Melbourne is just dirty. Yeah. Melbourne's a hole. It's not. It's got, no one moves to Melbourne for the weather. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Or the beaches, right? There's some seriously nice beaches around Australia. But the point being is that I had developed a stigma around WA before I was even there. And I did have some reservations on it based on the history of their property market. But I came back to this is like, if you are going to go with the crowd continually, like the chances of getting a really good result are quite low, right? So like when you hear, oh my God, Sydney's booming, it's already boomed. You're behind the eight ball.
Yeah.
So I looked at that and said, do I think WA is potentially going to see some upside? And in my view, I looked at it and what was presented to me and I was like, I think it might. And again, we've already purchased here. This is past data. Please don't copy us based on these things at all. But then the other side of it, you mentioned a really great point there is like, I don't have everything I own in WA. It's a diversified play in what I'm doing as well.
And it's also aligned to the strategy. Like I'm looking for a little bit more growth play. Rents might not be as high as other properties that I own and stuff like that, but it just depends on where my portfolio is at the moment and the play that I'm going on with my portfolio at the moment. So if anyone's listening and going, oh, I'm going to go to your point, I'm going to run over to Perth and buy something, it might not relate to your strategy or even to your play at all. You need the professionals to tell you. Yeah. And so, for me, the thing that I loved about it, so the second they like sent a property, it was like 1 kilometer from this amazing beach and 2 kilometers from this incredible lake. Like it is just like landlocked in this like little spot. And I'm just like, holy smokes. The quality, to your point, it's what Melbourne was like a decade or maybe even 2 decades ago from a product. It's just like, oh my gosh, these things exist still. Like, wow. And then I'm just like, yeah, there's no chance. Like places in front of the one that we bought are like a couple of $1 million for a place. And I'm just like, this is great. So for me, the stigma that I saw and that even in the news and stuff like that now, like they're like, oh, property prices are meh. Like our property went up 10% before a settlement. Like it was just a great experience from looking at it, breaking the stigma, and then getting in and going, oh, this is what it's about. But actually, I'm going to ask you, settlement, thoughts, tenants. How did you go?
It's interesting. It's very interesting. And you'll notice I say it's interesting when I don't have something overwhelmingly positive to say.
We've learned that about you. This is good.
Well, I learned some things, Grant. I definitely learned some things. One of the things that you suddenly become aware of when you get into property, if that's your flavor, is that when you buy property in different states, the process for buying a property is actually different in every state, which I didn't know. Like I almost thought of it more like buying a laptop from JB Hi-Fi. You know, JB Hi-Fi, it's the same in Queensland, it's the same in WA. You go in, you buy with the credit card, like buying process is the same. We're one country. Property, that's not true. It's very much done at a state level. Now, WA has some quirks that I wasn't ready for, and one of them is that you can fail settlement 2 times with no consequences. So you could just not settle, rebook it. She'll be right. I'll do it another day, mate. You know, we'll head out to the beach. And I can understand those beaches are beautiful. Like if you're a conveyancer, you know, the boat's there. Like maybe you don't settle and you go have a little fishing trip. Maybe. But my point being is that's exactly what happened. So in every other state, it's like I think they take settlement a little bit more seriously. Where in WA, because there's this, I don't want to say loophole, but like there's this tolerance on settlement that we went through a very, very challenging settlement. Like it was like, all right, it's booked. Oh, no, it failed. We'll do it another day. And for us, like that was very, very different. Yeah. The next component we learned through this is that is it the vendor we bought the house for? I think it's the vendor you call them.
Yep.
They were actually trying to settle on 2 properties at once. And there was something going on with their other property not settling, which was causing our one not to settle as well. Now, I can't speak to the dynamics of that. That's like secondhand information. But there was some complications with the vendor and what they were trying to get up to, which made it even more complex, which was not fun at all. And what happens in these scenarios is when a settlement fails, well, it creates all this work because now you've got to rebook it. Now you've got to talk to your mortgage broker again. Now you've got to talk to your conveyancer. So it's not just like the settlement failed and then, there it goes. It's like, well, you've got to have funds ready for the deposit. You've got to speak to all these people. And it definitely does put some pressure and stress onto like time boxing to get this organized again, which as a business owner, like I was prepared to run my business. I wasn't necessarily prepared to go reorganize the settlement again.
Yeah.
So that was a new learning for me. And I certainly feel now like I've bought in WA, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, like a good spread of things. I'm really getting to understand these different processes and just how important it is to know that they are very state-based.
Hey, fellow business owner, if this topic and value-packed short video has resonated with you at all, and you want to dive deeper into being a full stack business owner, check out the full episode by clicking the link on your screen or in the description right now.